Where the north of England meets the Midlands, where the sky-tossed Pennines fling their last challenge to the lapping English plains, there lies Derbyshire, the very heart of England. Southwards, gentle contours of soft green ploughland. Northwards, windswept hills, rolling gritstone hills of moor and tussock grass. Craggy limestone hills, thrusting bleached ribs of rock through thin sheep-grazed turf, a landscape of great skies and loneliness. From these unyielding hills, men have dug lead and lime, grit for millstone and grindstone. Little else there was to live by. Yet two things these hills offer in abundance. Freedom of spirit to men and women constricted within the bricks and concrete of a more commercial England roundabout. And water. Water that lies spongy on the gritstone moors, that is soaked up into the limestone, but always given back again. A murmuring of mountain water, a dancing of sunlight in green valleys. There is peace here, and a sense that what has been will always be. Time, it seems, cannot age the farms, the cottages, the dry stone walls. Men, one imagines, have always built them thus, and so they will stand in centuries to come, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Timelessness and peace. But when at the end of the day, aching limbs are tired, when muddy boots are taken off, and the noonday's quiet becomes a yearning for evening companionship, then gregarious man breaks through. Down from the heights of Abraham he comes, to Matlock Bath in Derwentdale, to shop, to rest, to dance, to dine, to try the waters that the Romans knew 17 centuries ago. Or maybe Buxton in Wydale, Buxton of the Georgian Crescent and the great domed hospital, spa, holiday resort, conference centre, festival town. These are the hill towns of Derbyshire, towns which have grown from the rambler, the holiday maker, the seeker after health, the man and woman in retirement. But in the south, there is another kind of town, the towns of the plain, in need of soaring spires to assert their less boisterous identity. Towns of weathered ochred brick, more closely linked to the surrounding soil and its produce. Market towns, where farmer meets farmer, and the hucksters and the stallholders meet his wife, and the bargaining is shrewd and hard. These, too, are historic towns, towns like Ashbourne here, proud of their gentler culture. Or Chesterfield of the crooked spire, though nobody knows why or when it twisted, a style not adopted by the 20th century architect who designed the portico town hall 3 decades back. Here is modern industrial progress, which is still capable of appreciating and preserving the best of the past. 300 years ago, when Chesterfield was small and rural, 3 gentlemen met nearby and vowed to stake their immortal souls in an act of sacrilege, and their more prosaically useful heads in an act of treason, the deposing of the divinely appointed James II in favor of Dutch William. It was the Cock and Pinert Inn then, but now it's Revolution House, and round the wooden table in the plotting chamber, they sat and put an end to James II and to the misery that had thrown up Sedgemoor, Judge Jeffreys, and the bloody assize. Even in those days, Haddon Hall was old. It was old when men spoke Chaucer's English, when John of Gaunt went wooing Elizabeth Swynford. The Norman Peverils began the building, the medieval Vernons added to it, and the Tudor manors completed it, half castle, half manor hall. Perhaps it was in these gardens that Dorothy, the last of the Vernons, met John, the first of the Manners, in a 16th century love story that ended in elopement. The Vernon family did not approve of John, so during a ball at midnight, the auburn-haired Dorothy slipped quietly out of a side door. Through the moonlit garden, down a hurried flight of steps she went, to the bridge over the Wye, where her lover waited with horses. They married at Ayleston in Leicestershire, and the Manners are at Haddon Hall to this day. By comparison, Chatsworth House, home of the Cavendishes, Dukes of Devonshire, is young. When Dorothy and John eloped, the scaffolding was still round the first Chatsworth. Since then, all has been rebuilt, and the present house was not finished until a century ago. Capability Brown helped to design the gardens, the fountains, the ornamental lakes. In contrast, stark stands the grim outline of Peak Castle, home of Sir Walter Scott's Peveril of the Peak, with Norman walls 8 feet thick, though history does not credit it with any romantic battles or sieges. More likely it was a Norman hunting lodge, for all this sweep of peakland round Mam Tor was an ancient hunting forest, where a man might forfeit his life for killing a deer, and where wolves once foraged. But no more dangerous animal than a Derbyshire ram is likely to molest today's young hunters in search of fresh air and the chance to try unfledged muscles against the wind and the hills and the crags. They have the choice of climbing upwards to the gritstone edges and escarpments, but they'd be wise to leave the final scramble to the trained and experienced climber, or else learn to do it properly first, for some of Derbyshire's climbs are tough enough to test the best. Or in the limestone country, they can climb downwards, potholing into the caves and crannies that millenniums of percolating water have fashioned until the countryside is hollow as a drum. For the young, there are caverns adventurous. For the more staid, there are caverns spectacular. But each is enchanting, curtained in stalactite and stalagmite, enjeweled with crystals of quartz and fluorspar. Alone in the world is here found Blue John, crystals of fluorspar, oil-stained blue. They're fashioned into vases and ornaments. For one like this, the Roman Emperor Nero paid £50,000. Roadstone and grit, grindstone and millstone, roof flag and paving stone, Derbyshire has sent them all over the world, to the pulp mills of Canada, to the buildings of Australia. Feed the pigeons in London's Trafalgar Square, and your footsteps ring out on Derbyshire stone. Travel by train over the Midlands of England, and the rail sleepers are safely set in Derbyshire grit. Down to the High Peak Railway come the mineral lines, cable winches turned by steam beam engines, as immaculate and as reliable as when they were first installed over a century ago. Hilly Derbyshire set the pioneer railway builders some formidable engineering problems, worth solving if only for the sake of linking the bustling industrial lowlands on either flank. Down there in the lowlands, Derbyshire limestone and Derbyshire coal are as essential to the manufacture of the world's largest steel pipes as the iron itself. All kinds of pipes. Pipes for carrying the water of Derbyshire to the cities of the plains. Manchester is served from Longdendale, Glossop from Bleaklow. Buxton draws water from Coombs Moss and Stanley Moor. Stockport from Kinder Scout, Lyme Park and the Goyt. From the great man-made reservoirs of Houghton, Derwent and Ladybower comes water for Derby, for Leicester, for Nottingham, for Sheffield.